Teachers have accelerated the quality of online instruction with basic devices such as a laptop, a webcam, and maybe a ring light. With remote learning here to stay, there's massive potential to accelerate the experience. The CDC 2 Fridays ago pushed for schools to reopen in person, but Mother Nature had different plans. Record-breaking snowstorms pushed states like Texas and Oklahoma that were in person to close down for the week. Even if they wanted to switch back to remote learning, that was not possible, as 15 million people in Texas were without power. March, a month known for spring break, will now be a focal point to springing back into school. What we're unaware of is how many school districts across the country that are going in person are also expecting teachers to offer remote simultaneously for synchronous learning. Teachers for the last several months have in phenomenal fashion accelerated their technology capabilities and become wizards facilitating both in-person and online experiences. But isn't it overextending to provide two learning environments at the same time? Well, last week I spoke with Dr. Michael Lubefeld, superintendent at North Shore District 12, about post-COVID school districts and what school could look like from an attendance, systemic, and flexibility mindset. My guest today is Erica Forti, superintendent at East Haven Public Schools, and we focus on the future of student experience in a classroom. She was able to keep her schools open all year and offer a live streaming model for students and families who preferred to stay remote. I spoke with her to learn about her model, as some of her teachers have invested the longest time curating live stream instruction while having in-person class at the same time.
I'm Erica Forti. I'm the superintendent of East Haven Public Schools. We're a small district located right on the shoreline in Connecticut, right on the fringe of New Haven. So we're sort of an urban fringe district. The live stream model works out really great because, as you know, with quarantining and students having to move in and out for different reasons, having access to the regular teacher and access to that classroom instruction where all their peers are is pretty seamless. So if you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, you're with your teacher live streaming together in a virtual setting, or you're live streaming into your classroom where your teacher's teaching in front of their in-person learners.
Here's what's fascinating about live streaming classrooms. It can turn teachers into streamers, which is a common influencer on sites like Twitch and YouTube that allow people with personality who play video games to broadcast themselves so that fans can watch. Several Twitch streamers have crazy setups with high-def cameras, color lighting, and special effects soundboards as they engage with fans. Their setup costs thousands of dollars, which is why Superintendent Forti and her staff have shown how to be resourceful. But with more influencers jumping into streaming outside of gaming, maybe we should consider teachers as a new category in the streaming world. We are already competing with this content for student attention, so maybe this is our chance to engage in how kids interact with the media today. Schools are not the only ones seeing high levels of streaming, as almost 89 million minutes were spent live on Twitch in just January, which is the most the site has ever recorded.
It's incredibly overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming for leadership. It's overwhelming for teachers, right? We're trying to do two different learning models and make sure that all of our kids have access to education in an equitable manner. So our idea was we needed a device that everybody was pretty familiar with. And so, everybody has a phone. So we chose iPads, and we got a stand, and we got, some microphones, and we said, we've got to keep the technology simple. We don't want to invest a lot of time in like these tracking cameras, and we have Zoom and we have Google Meet. And so we're using those platforms. Some teachers, they have their preferences, and we want them to have the autonomy to choose which platform. So cool. We have an iPad on a stand in the front of the classroom with the teacher, and those are our at-home friends, and we have our in-school friends, and, the teacher's engaging with both. We do have some support staff in classrooms. So at some point, the teacher might be the in-person learners, and a special ed teacher or an ELL teacher might be working with the at-home learners, and then they switch. Our parent feedback data, though, gave us some great insight about the concerns parents had around these different learning models. And one of them for our at-home learners was, connecting with their peers and social and those social interactions with their peers. So we're looking to find ways where we can increase that and bridge that. So we might be looking at additional after-school sessions where we can get kids in settings, just talking casually, having some social interactions that they're kind of missing, those opportunities when they're passing in the hall or at lunch or in a study hall and things of that nature. So we start, but we're never finished. We're constantly maneuvering and moving around to make sure that we're doing the best we can and being responsive to the input we're getting from parents. And soon, hopefully, our student survey that we're handing out this week.
Superintendent Forti also mentioned the challenges of social interaction, but there are many ways to create a community with chat functions that allow for people to interact, not just with the teachers streaming, but with the students in the classroom. This means the classroom laptops can also allow in-person students to interact with the remote students and the teacher in the live stream chat function, while still participating in the in-person experience.
We're stretching ourselves in so many ways, but when this is all over, if it ever is, we cannot go back to doing business as usual. No way, because there are things here that are working that we can take advantage of, right? We have athletes who may have a knee injury, who have to have ACL surgery, and they're out, they think, for a week, and then there's some complications, and then they're out for a month, right? So how do we capitalize on some of these experiences? And instead of, after 2 weeks going by, we follow up, what's going on? We miss so-and-so, where are they? We've had some complications. We're going to be out another couple of weeks. All right, so we're going to send a tutor to the home. Why can't we have the child live stream into the classroom and access that instruction and make it more seamless and coherent, right? So those conversations are absolutely happening. I think what we have to be mindful of is that, you have to design the program in anticipation for all of those unique circumstances, whether we have students who are struggling every day with anxieties and struggle to come to school or feeling uneasy, students who may be ill or sick, students who sometimes are faced with family hardships that require them to be home for unforeseen circumstances. How do we design it so that we're maximizing our staff, but also not stretching them so thin that we're losing the impact that both of these models can have? And I think that's where the challenge comes in a little bit, because right now, we're live streaming every single classroom. So, looking at it very coherently and succinctly to say, we could potentially have a dozen kids across a dozen K-5 classrooms who need to access some live streaming for various reasons. How do you structure that so that, you're not having to live stream every class every day, because it could get really taxing on teachers. And, we've done the best that we can to support them and provide them with some of those professional learning opportunities and growth. But we're learning alongside them as well. So, there's also some things that we really need to think very deeply, systematically, and critically about moving forward. But there is a lot of opportunity here, a lot. It's kind of exciting.
There is a ton of potential here, and investing dollars in building digital classroom infrastructure is a good long-term investment. I believe what is happening in Superintendent Forti schools on iPads and Zooms can be correlated to what is happening with live streamers and esports teams. I think if we want kids to be engaged, we need to have this ambition to turn our classrooms to pods that blend both remote and in-person for a transformational digital learning experience. If you know a teacher, educator, or leader who is doing cool things in the live streaming space, please reach out. In the meantime, keep changing the world.